For 5 millennia, the Persian Gulf has connected major civilizations. Ancient traders moved spices and textiles from Mesopotamia to the Indus Valley. Today, that identical passage is the most critical artery of global trade, carrying 20 million barrels of oil every single day. While the Strait of Hormuz looks wide open on a standard map, large ships are restricted to a highly controlled traffic system. They must navigate 2 narrow shipping lanes, each just 2 miles wide. For a modern vessel, that leaves practically zero margin for error. Compare the daily traffic through Hormuz against every available backup system. Saudi Arabia and the UAE can reroute some oil through pipelines. Combined, those bypasses max out at roughly 6 million barrels per day. That leaves 15 million barrels of oil entirely stranded. There is no backup system that can absorb that volume. The entire modern economy relies on this single bottleneck operating without interruption. If the traffic stops, the window for survival for nations that rely on these exports is measured in weeks. Qatar is the world's largest exporter of liquefied natural gas, supercooled gas stored in massive spherical tanks for transport. Over 90% of that resource leaves the country exclusively through Hormuz. If the strait closes, Qatar hits a physical limit. The country has roughly 30 days before its internal storage facilities reach maximum capacity. Once those tanks are full, production halts and national revenue disappears. Iraq faces a similar timeline. Nearly 100% of Iraqi oil exports move through this exact route, accounting for 90% of the total government revenue. Without that flow, capital required to pay civil salaries, import food, and maintain basic services vanishes. Within 60 days, the state loses the ability to function. For these nations, the lack of alternate export capacity means a blockage triggers a rapid sequence of state failure as the primary source of funding disappears. This map tracks where that energy goes once it clears the bottleneck. Nearly 85% of the oil moving through Hormuz travels east to the industrial hubs of Asia. Nations like Japan and South Korea import the majority of their energy to power massive manufacturing sectors. Their internal reserves cover only a limited window of time, after which their factories must slow production and the economy contracts. China, the world's largest manufacturing base, buys 38% of the oil coming through Hormuz. Their strategic reserves cover roughly 100 days, but these supplies are designed to buy time for a resolution. Supply chains tighten and factory output begins to drop long before the tanks are empty. While the energy shortage hits industry, a secondary crisis begins in the agricultural sector. The Persian Gulf is a primary supplier of the natural gas required to synthesize global fertilizers. Almost half of the global urea trade passes through this single waterway. Countries like India depend on ammonia and urea from the Gulf to maintain crop yields. Without these inputs, agricultural output drops and food prices rise. Because half of the world's urea trade originates here, a closure at Hormuz forces an immediate drop in crop yields and higher food costs across vulnerable regions. Given these stakes, it seems logical that global superpowers would simply deploy their militaries to secure the lanes and force the ships through. However, modern maritime conflict does not require an absolute blockade. Iran has spent decades developing asymmetric naval tools, smart mines, anti-ship missiles, and fast attack boats specifically designed to operate in these confined spaces. A single damaged tanker or one floating mine forces a recalculation of maritime insurance premiums for every vessel in the region. Once insurance premiums reach unsustainable levels, ship owners independently reroute their vessels. The traffic slows and the flow of energy stops without the need for a physical barricade. The stability of the global economy is not governed by military control, but by the perception of safety inside a chokepoint thousands of miles away.